to part 2 of drug trafficking in our social study class. Remember, in our social study class, we talk about social issues that affect us as individuals, as family, as a community, and as a country. And in our last class, we talked about drug trafficking. We explained what drug trafficking is, and we equally explain why people go into drug. Today, the only objective we're going to talk about is consequences of drug trafficking. What are the consequences that comes along trafficking drugs? We saw the flimsy excuses that people give that makes them to go into drugs. Now let's carry over that knowledge to the consequences of drug trafficking. If you have not watched that video, it is our last episode. Please navigate through the channel and watch that episode. It is part 1 of drug trafficking. That's part 1 will help you to understand part 2, because you understand what drug trafficking is, why people do drug, and other things. And so today let's look at 6 major things or 6 major consequences that comes as a result of drug trafficking. 1. Imprisonment. 2. Leads to death. 3. Behavioral change. 4. Destroy individual image and that of his country. Then we have increase of criminal activities. And then lastly, bad words or ill-gotten words. These are the consequences of drug trafficking. I have listed them. I'm going to take them one after the other, how they affect us individually. 1. Imprisonment. People who do drug are arrested by law enforcement agency and then they are sent to prison. Some of them, most of them are sent to prison. Some spend a number of years there, some spend a short while there, but they go to prison because they have broken the law. The law of the land forbids doing drugs, trafficking drugs. And so when an individual becomes a drug trafficker, he's going against the law of the land, and sure, the law will always catch up with such an individual. So those who do drug end up in prison. That is one of the consequences of doing drugs. Then the next one is leads to death. Some of these individuals that have been arrested are sent to prison. Sometimes they die there. Sometimes, in effort to have a frontal attack with the law enforcement agency, they are killed in the process. And then, sometimes they die because they have taken excessive drugs that the system can no longer tolerate. So a number of things can make an individual die as a result of doing drugs. 1, the law can catch up with you and you are in prison. If you cannot cope with the environment, you can die. 2, in the process of doing drug, cutting edges and cutting corners, you may meet your Waterloo and you may die. 3, drug traffickers are mostly drug abusers. So they take these drugs, for those who traffic drugs. A number of them take these drugs. And if the system cannot cope with this, that can lead to death. So we see processes that drug trafficking can lead an individual to death. Then we talk about behavioral change. People who traffic drug, people who do drug, the moment they take drug, their behavior changes. Over time, over usage, it affects the system, it affects the brain, it affects your mental health, it affects your social welfare, it affects everything that has to do with your tutu. And at the end of the day, you see this individual behaving abnormal. You see this individual not stable again mentally. It affects the individual finance, it affects the individual mental activity, it affects his family relationship, it affects his relationship with others. Socially, it affects the individual. And before you see, the individual that you know that behaves stable become mentally derailed. The individual become mentally unstable. The individual starts suffering from one thing or the other. Start having some illness that you cannot even explain why and how. because the person does drug, and this drug have eaten deep into the system, and the system can no longer tolerate it, and then things go out of hand. Behavioral change. Destroy individual's image and that of his country. If you know somebody who does drug, will you have a good relationship with that person? If you know somebody who does drug, will you allow your child to be a friend to that person? If you know somebody who does drug, will you be a close ally with that person? If you know somebody who does drug, will you be in partnership with that person? And so, the image of a drug trafficker is always tarnished because people look at him as a lawbreaker. People look at him as irresponsible. People look at that person as an outcast. So, what happens? His image is tarnished. Nobody regards him as somebody that is well to reckon with. And then, if he's in the outside world, the moment they ask you where do you come from and you call your country, because you do drugs, they said that is the kind of country you comes from. They perpetuate vice. They are not well reckoned with. So you tarnish your own image, you tarnish that of your country's image. At the end of the day, what do you portray out there in the world? What do you portray within your environment? It is something to think about. A good name is better than riches. And so, protect your name. Have a good name. Leave a good legacy. Mentor people for what is good and not what is bad. Increase of criminal activity. Drug traffickers are perpetrators of criminal activity because those who go into kidnapping, armed robbery, different vices that is a problem in our social environment, most of them are drug users. Once they use drug, they do anything. They don't care whether people exist or not. They carry out their vices, they carry out their activities, they carry out whatever comes to their mind because they are under the influence of drug. They are not thinking like a normal human being who wake up in the morning and have to plan and think straight and get motivated. No. They wake up, do drug, be under the influence of drug, and they do things that are not worth it at all. And so these criminal activities make the environment so unconducive for others to live in. And then the sixth one is bad wealth. Because people see people who do drug accumulate wealth, they want to go into it. Ill-gotten wealth is what is common in the world today. People don't think about how you got your money, but there are some integrity keepers who cares about how you got your money. And so, if people of integrity are reckoned with, you are not reckoned with because you have your wealth illy. Your wealth are ill-gotten. And so nobody look at your wealth as good. For those who have integrity keeper, there are those who still look at those people as their heroes. But for those who are inclined to doing what is right, they don't look at such an individual as who is responsible. And so, this kind of ill-gotten wealth leads to something bad. It can lead to death, it can lead to imprisonment, it can lead to a lot of things. We have seen the consequences of drug trafficking. Which of these consequences is right for anybody? None. Imprisonment is not good. Death, behavioral change, destroys individual image and that of his country. Criminal activity perpetuated or increase in criminal activity. Ill-gotten wealth or bad wealth. All of these are the consequences of drug trafficking. Let's look for other ways to make money. Get a skill. There are trading skills that can make you millions of naira. There are a lot of things you can do to make ends meet. Try to be innovative, creative. Learn from people who are good at their field. Make a difference in your world. That will help you to make your wealth in a good way, not drug trafficking. If you look at the consequences of drug trafficking, you will decide to do other things to make you to make you rich instead of cutting corners to do drugs. So that is one social area we have talked about, desisting from drug abuse, because the consequences are higher than its immediate benefits. Please, if you've not subscribed to this channel, subscribe. Hit the subscribe button. Like what we do here, share our videos, invite others to this community so that we can grow more and more. If you have questions, give me below the comment box. If you have other points to add to this, comment below the comment box to make money. It was my pleasure being here on Class Online School. As always, we discuss social issues that affect our society, our family, and individuals. And so please, let's take this to heart and apply it in a more positive way and advise people and ourselves not to traffic drug. It was my pleasure being here. Thank you for being part of our class. Hit the subscribe button if you have not subscribed. We have more than 85% of people who come across our channel that are not subscribed. But if you know you like what we do here and you find value for what we do here, subscribe, share our videos, download for your children, listen to these classes. You can learn one or two things from them, get motivated and do something meaningful with your life. It's always my pleasure being here. If you have comments, give us comment below the comment box. If you have questions, give us ask your question below the comment box. If you have any suggestion on the channel, please do that. If you have any points to add to the 6 points I've discussed in this class, add it to be the 7th one, and as many as you can add. Please go ahead. We are all learning. We are all work in progress. Thank you for being part of this community. Thank you for always dropping by. Until I come your way next class, when we discuss other social issues that affect our life and our society. Thank you.